Hello, and welcome to the Freight FA Brief. Back in March, we covered Aurora as the company that quietly crossed 250,000 miles with driverless trucks. The first lanes started in Texas, running all the way to Phoenix. Well, since then, they've done some pretty spectacular things that we wanted to come back and highlight, and specifically want to put them on your radar as a major disruptor. So, since our story in March, they've tripled their driverless network to 10 routes across the U.S. Sunbelt. They've validated a 1,000-mile Fort Worth to Phoenix lane that blows past human hours of service, and they signed a Path to 500 truck deal with Hirschbach Motor Lines, targeting up to 500 million driverless miles and hundreds of millions in multi-year revenue. Now, I know we like to talk about the emerging tech and autonomous vehicles on this show, but this doesn't feel like another hype segment. This is about lanes, contracts, and cost curves. So I want to dive into it. As we previously stated, in early 2026, Aurora announced that with its latest software release, it had tripled its driverless network from 3 routes to 10 across the southern U.S. So these are lanes like Dallas to Houston, Fort Worth to El Paso to Phoenix, Fort Worth to Phoenix, and Dallas to Laredo. As of January 2026, logged 250,000 driverless miles, with one key factor that I think really highlights how remarkable this is. They had 0 collisions attributed to their Aurora driverless system. In fact, industry coverage puts that number slightly higher now, with reports of over 370,000 miles and 100% on-time performance as the network ramps. Now, Aurora says all of its commercial truck capacity is already committed through the third quarter of 2026 as it prepares to scale its driverless operations. It's also planning to have more than 200 driverless trucks operating in the Sunbelt by the end of 2026. This implies an annualized transportation as a service revenue run rate of around $80 million. So, of course, the story has shifted from can this work to how fast can we scale this? I think that's especially important to highlight as we talked about a driver shortage earlier this year. Now, as we highlighted before, the validated 1,000-mile lane from Fort Worth to Phoenix, Arizona is an important corridor for a few reasons. One, it exceeds the federal hours of service limits. 2, the company says that without mandatory rest breaks, its system can cut transit times nearly in half. And 3, what this means is higher asset turns, higher annual miles per tractor, and a structural speed advantage. Aurora is using something called verifiable AI, and this is used to automate most of the mapping work after a single manual drive. And this drastically reduces the time that human labor is needed. So instead of spending months handcrafting map for one specific lane, they can light up new lanes and direct to customer routes much faster now. This route now has a fundamentally different service and cost curve for whoever controls driverless capacity. Hey, let's take a quick break because I want to talk to you about Freight FA. If you're listening to this, you probably already realize that freight is becoming more data-driven. It's becoming increasingly more variable. And honestly, it's more confusing. I mean, let's look at it. You've got human-only lanes, blended lanes, future autonomous lanes, and everyone shows up with a different RFP and a different story to tell. This is where Freight FA comes in. This platform was built for people like you who don't have time to manually rebuild those models every quarter. Here's a few things about Freight FA. First, Freight GPT. This is your AI analyst that speaks freight, and it's always on. You can literally ask it anything. Another key feature of Freight FA is pricing intelligence. This platform ingests market data. It looks at benchmarks and your assumptions, and it turns them into lane-level cost estimates so that you can see where your cost curve bends first before you sit down at the negotiation table. Last, scenario planning. Let's say you want to know what will happen to your network if a company like Aurora starts shipping in your lanes. You can model that on Freight FA. Listen, we designed Freight FA to be a freight intelligence layer that you wish your TMS or your business intelligence team had time to build. So go to freightfa.com. That's freightfa.com. And while you're there, check out Freight GPT. All right, let's get back to Aurora because I want to cover what's new. Let's talk about the deal that really shifts this from interesting lanes to serious volume. And that's the Hirschbach deal. In late April, Aurora and the refrigerated motor line announced a non-binding memorandum of understanding. And it outlined Hirschbach's intent to deploy 500 Aurora driver-powered trucks starting in 2027. So here are some key points you should care about. The deal covers up to 500 million driverless miles across Hirschbach's network, particularly on high-volume routes in the Sunbelt and beyond. Aurora expects that, if finalized, will create a multi-year revenue stream to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, Hirschbach has already been running Aurora-equipped trucks, and according to recent reports, they've logged more than 800,000 miles and over 2,000 loads with the Aurora driver. Hirschbach's CEO, Richard Stocking, put it very bluntly, saying autonomous trucks will provide 24/7 service, increasing consistency with customers. And he looks at it as a growth lever for his company. Now, there is one other deal that was made by Aurora, and that was with the McLane Company. The McLane Company is a Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary, and it's one of the largest distributors in the U.S. The two have agreed to begin driverless hauls in Texas. Now, if you need to understand who McLane is further, they serve chain restaurants, convenience stores, and mass merchants nationwide. So this really is a core food and retail distribution infrastructure. Now, here's some key facts on this. McLane and Aurora have been running a supervised pilot since 2023. During that pilot, Aurora logged over 280,000 autonomous miles in Texas and delivered 1,400 loads for McLane. Aurora hit 100% on-time performance on those McLane loads, including 2 round trips per day between Dallas and Houston, 7 days a week. Based on that record, McLane has now approved fully driverless operations between Dallas and Houston, with plans to expand to additional routes between McLane's distribution centers across the U.S. Sunbelt by 2026. So with these two significant deals, let's talk about what this means for your strategy. The first thing is we need to start treating autonomous capacity like it's a real thing and not like it's a novelty. Aurora is showing real signs of scale and real signs of business with real business partners. The second thing, get very specific about lanes, not autonomy in general. You need to look at your actual network. Do any of your lanes coincide with Aurora's lanes? If the answer is yes, you need to understand if you're going to plug directly into this capacity or partner with it. Third, rewrite your mental model of price and service tiers. Let's face it, 1,000-mile run that can remain driverless and can operate 24/7 is not just a cheaper version today. It's a completely different product. So ask yourself, what can you offer today? Is it faster transit at equal or lower cost? Or is it the same transit with better margins? And that's going to raise some very tough questions. Are you going to pass those savings on to win share? Fourth and last, it's important to start building autonomous vehicle scenarios into your capital planning. If Aurora and its peers hit their own guidance, we're going to see hundreds and then thousands of autonomous trucks concentrated in a handful of key corridors by 2030. So listen, that's it for today. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure to share it with a colleague. You can follow us on LinkedIn at the Freight Flow Advisor, where we post daily freight trends and all of our articles. And speaking of articles, you can check us out on substack.com under the Freight FA Brief. That's where we put our most in-depth analysis and curated articles on a daily basis. And don't forget, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. And last, we just joined Facebook, so make sure you go over and follow us there at the Freight Flow Advisor. Until next time, this has been your Freight Flow Advisor Brief.